Good morning. This is Rick Ackerman, and I'm holding an orientation session for those who signed up for the August webinar. I pushed it back just a little bit to give me a little more time to revise the material, but as you'll already be aware, this is a radically revised webinar. I've changed the content significantly so that I will be able to offer the course in one session, one 3-hour session, instead of two consecutive 3-hour sessions one night after the next. So in order to do this, I'm going to drill down on the visual concepts. I'm going to teach this course very much the way I taught it to myself. This is my own system, and it's been evolving, it's been shaped and honed over the last 15 years. But this is probably the most radically revised version of the course that I've ever given. Because I'm an English major, I come at it with one side of my brain working, and it's mainly visual. You're going to learn to look at these patterns as you might look at paintings. So you're not going to see oscillators and support and resistance lines and things like that, but rather elements of symmetry, harmony, and even beauty as you would apprehend in a painting. So one of the big advantages of coming at a system in that way is that it's somewhat subjective, and when things don't work, when a pattern is consistently delivering profits and then it stops doing so, in order to, if you were trading with an algorithmic system, you have a very difficult task trying to tweak the algorithm back into shape so that it works as well as it did originally. But we, on the other hand, can take a somewhat different approach, and I might say to you, well, you know, if the ABC pattern that's been working so nicely has stopped working, then try using gnarlier patterns that look less visually obvious as ABC patterns. The ABC pattern is fundamental to the way we're going to be looking at everything. So we're going to see all of these charts and the tradable patterns in the construct of, well, let me show you an ABC pattern here. Actually, one I didn't notice earlier, but I've got an A at the high there, I'm clicking on a B there, and I'll take the C there, and it shows minimum downside to 414 and change. Now, you already know, if you've been with BricsPicks for any length of time, that these targets work with amazing accuracy. And when you get a pattern that's as refined as this, where you can see a good sharp A, B, and C, it works so well that you could probably go bottom fishing down at this 413 target, 413.12 with a 5-cent stop loss. So some vehicles trade better than others, more accurately, and it'll be your task, and I hope great pleasure, to find the patterns that work the best, that trade the best. Now, there are quite a few rules, and I've been tossing around in my head which rules I want to eliminate. Some of them, excuse me, that's good. Tossing these things around in my head, and let me close up Skype so that we don't have any further interruptions here. So there are a few that I thought originally I could get around, such as what I call internal and external peaks. But we're going to have some distinction between those that's important, so I will be teaching that technique. But let me jump quite a bit ahead of ourselves, and this may be actually where I start the course. It'll be a little bit like Berlitz total immersion, where you sit down in the classroom and without any prior knowledge of language or grammar, the teacher might say, you know, Mr. Whitaker, would you please stand up and go to the blackboard? So we're going to go, let me show you what used to be toward the end of the course, this idea of camouflage trading. Camouflage, the technique, brings together all of the techniques that are taught up to this point in the course, but in a visual scheme of things, I want you to see the camouflage trades when we start out. we start the course. Essentially, camouflage trades are trades where we're looking at targets, hidden pivot targets on big charts, and when we get near those targets, if, for instance, it's a rally target and we want to get short there, rather than get short at the target and so to speak catch the speeding bullet or stand in the way of a speeding freight train, we will go down, we'll zoom down to a chart of much lesser degree. We might go to the 1 minute chart and we'll look for, if we're looking, let's say, for a rally top in this stock at 1.4890, the euro, then we would go down to the 1 minute or even the 30-second bar chart and look for a downtrending ABCD that we could trade. Alright, so let me show you a sequence of slides that explains the camouflage process. First of all, we want to be looking for camouflage when we get something in a chart of larger degree, in this case the 15-minute, that says we're going to get a turn. And in this case, we might predict a turn from around 1156.50. That's what I call the midpoint hidden pivot of this downtrending A, B, C, D. P is simply the midpoint, the calculated midpoint of that CD leg. And so if we're looking for the turn from around 1156.50, we drop down to the 2 minute chart, and we were looking for the turn right here. But it didn't occur exactly there. It went a little bit lower, down to 1155 and change, and rallied. And the first place where we see this camouflage trade is in the form of well, we've got an impulse leg right here. An impulse leg that got past the required 1, 2 prior peaks, and even an extra one, a third peak. So that's what we have, an impulse leg right here. And we have a beautiful pullback into a BC. And as long as we have A, B, and C, it means we've got X, a place to get long, an entry signal, and that's where we get long. So again, instead of catching the speeding bullet down here by getting long against the trend, we wait for the reversal trend to develop in the form of an A, B, C, D pattern. So that's basically how camouflage works. And I'm going to teach you many things that are, I guess you could say, street savvy oriented. These will be ideas for risk management, and not too many rules really, but we'll be on top of some trading ideas such as something I call the dynamic trailing stop, and also something called an impulse leg based stop loss. The impulse leg based stop loss is really the simplest thing, simplest tool I've ever found for managing the risk of a trade. Alright, so one more slide here, relax and let your profits run. So that's essentially the camouflage trade, but one of the major revisions in this course will be to get a little bit away from camouflage. It's a technique that I've taught since 2010, and we're going to get a little bit away from it to consider the many other ways that you can trade a particular vehicle when you have a very good, confident idea of where the swing highs and lows are going to occur relative to our hidden pivot targets. I guess I shouldn't say relative to, because we expect these turns to occur right at the pivot. So let me, this is actually a slide from the original course, and the course manual runs to about 170 pages, I believe. And I'm going to see if I can cut that down to maybe 70 or 80 pages. So you'll be receiving the manual in the mail in revised form probably pretty close to the start date of the course, because as I mentioned, I am working on the revisions now, and it will be all new slides, all new charts. In the meantime, though, because you're signed up for the course, I would encourage you to come to the Wednesday tutorial sessions. They constitute a kind of graduate studies course, and they're absolutely essential. I can't possibly teach everything that I need to teach you in the space of a 3-hour course, or even a 6-hour course for that matter. So a lot of the holes, the subtleties get filled in during these Wednesday sessions. And I try my hardest to make these sessions not be just simply chalk talk where we're theoretically trying to figure out what to do. I want you to come prepared to trade at those Wednesday sessions, because I know it's most helpful for you to find out when I would actually pull the trigger. You know, we'll be looking at charts and patterns as they develop in real time, and I know that you'd like to see where I would actually say, hey, this is the place to jump on board. So we're going to be doing that. With any luck, we'll actually find during the hour that these sessions take place some real tradable tradable signals. So just a few words on the process. You're signed up now. My wife just got back from a vacation. We were in New Jersey for a high school reunion related event that I had. She went back to Colorado. I'm here in Florida visiting my mother for her 94th birthday. And but Marilyn, when I get back, will be in touch with you. She's your point person. And let me type her address. It's Marilyn. Let's see, MARILYN @rickackerman.com, and she will be the person that tells you how to get into the webinar session when we actually hold it. She'll make sure that you're prepared with the USB connected microphone, and that you get the course materials in the mail, and so on and so forth. So she'll be administering the course, and any questions that you have along the way should be addressed to her. But again, the thing I want to stress most is that you start coming to the Wednesday sessions. You will also have access to recordings of hundreds of hours of these Wednesday sessions. And you should probably start with the most recent of them, because you're not going to be familiar with many of the techniques that are discussed in these sessions. It will be a little bit Greek to you, but just the same, it will be kind of like the Berlitz experience, where you sit down in the classroom and you see what's actually happening, and you'll grab it. In that way, you'll grab some of the ideas at least before you come to the course. You'll also be able to ask better questions when you come to the course. Typically, I do it in 1 hour segments with an open-ended Q&A break between each of the hour-long segments. So the more you know, there are no prerequisites, and I don't expect or ask you to learn anything about the hidden pivot system before you come to that class in August. But if you want to get a little bit of a jump on it, again, the Wednesday sessions are the place to do it. That's about it. I do want to just say one more time that I'm going to be emphasizing the visual aspects of the hidden pivot system over and above the rules. And this is somewhat experimental for me, but not actually in the way that I'll be teaching the course the way I learned it myself. My ideas are primarily visual. I look at charts not based on certain rules, but just kind of, I want you to take in the big picture when you look at these charts, and I want you to get used to seeing really good, promising, reliable ABC patterns before you start applying rules. So that's going to be the approach that I'll take, and I think it'll simplify it. It will leave you, you won't get hung up on certain concepts that I think may be more trouble than they're worth, really. I eventually want you to know those concepts at some point, but they're not. I don't want you to get badgered by them and hung up on them initially. I just want you to see these patterns, which is really what I emphasize and teach. It's what I've taught all along. But with all the rules and things that go out with these charts, some people forget the big idea. It's almost like trying to get your breathing down when you're perfecting a golf swing. you're so busy thinking about all the alignment of your swing that you forget about the breathing. So this will be, breathing comes first, and we're going to work on it that way. So with that, I'm going to open the session to any questions you might have. The questions can concern the process itself. What can you expect to get in the mail? How do you keep up with the preliminaries here as we come into I think the webinar date is August 22nd. So if you have any questions at all about the process, please go ahead and ask them. Or if you have a question about the hidden pivot method, you might ask that as well. One more thing I'll mention, when we look at PowerPoint slides of ABCD patterns that we use to trade and forecast, the patterns are frozen in time, and in some cases they've already actually played out. But when we learn about the hidden pivot method, looking at real-time charts as we're doing right now, this is a live chart for Netflix, you'll find that bringing a speculative eye to your learning greatly steepens the learning curve. You'll learn a lot more, a lot quicker if we're looking at charts in real time rather than PowerPoint slides that captured the price action at a certain time. I have a note from Chase, my marketing person, that August 21st is the actual date of the webinar. So here, I'm just going to mention this. I really expect this 413.12 target to be reached very precisely. And the way we determine that is that price action at the P midpoint is predictive of price action at D. So here, because we've got a downtrend that very precisely played footsies here with the P midpoint, the red line, we know that this thing is essentially tracking the pattern that I've drawn, that the ABC is correct, because this thing definitely is showing a very precise effect. It's bouncing precisely from P, so when it gets down to 413.12, we expect just as precise a bounce. As far as whether it will get there, we know that it will, or we almost know for certain that it will, because of the way when it finally broke through that red line, it did so decisively that in itself tells us that this thing is actually going to D. Slightly different from the target I put out in the chat room, but it's different because I wasn't looking at a chart of lesser degree, a 5-minute in this case, but the 5-minute gives me some nuances here to tell me exactly where this thing is going. So let's see. All right, we have a note from Andrew. He's moving shortly. Is it possible to receive only digital materials? We can work something out there. Again, I do not have the new course manual prepared yet. It will replicate the PowerPoint presentation itself, so you don't really need the course manual before you go into the course. But at the very least, Andrew, you will have access to recordings of the Wednesday sessions, if not, and perhaps I haven't decided on this yet, but perhaps access to the 6-hour course in recorded form. So, so that's anyway. As far as digital materials, we'll work with you on that. And again, Marilyn is the point person, Marilyn at rickackerman.com. So let me see. If there are no further questions, I'm going to end this this session. Let me give you just a little sneak preview here of the course manual, though. This is the basic pattern, A, B, C, D, and we consider the AB part of it the impulse leg, BC is the corrective phase, CD is the follow-through, and the assumption of what my method is that AB and CD will be equal. And of course we know that this is not a perfect world, so that in many if not most instances, A, B, and C, D will be unequal, and it is in the inequality that we will find tradable ideas and also analytical, develop our analytical chops. But the purpose, whatever you imbibe in the way of rules initially, it's my goal to transcend your rules-based knowledge of the system so that it becomes something like market instincts. So the idea is if you apply rules rigorously every day to your trading, you eventually develop a little bit of horse sense about it, and that's definitely what's going to happen. It's what I expect, and you'll find that if you put some work and time into it, that just applying the same rigorous mechanical system over and over again will give you better instincts about what's going on a chart. So that's the ultimate goal, is to take you beyond a rules-based knowledge. And I'll also mention that any system that brings you to your desk each day brings you to a disciplined point of view, where you drop anchor every day and watch the market from the same vantage point. Well, if you do that day in and day out, you'll appreciate the market's basic rhythms. You'll begin to understand the markets if you observe them each day from a fixed and disciplined advantage point or vantage point. So that will work, as I said, with any system, but this is a really good one. It's certainly the best system that I know of. Elliott Wave is a great system too, but it's very complicated, and I've known very few Zen masters of Elliott Wave theory. A couple questions here. Andrew asked if I could delay sending his course materials until he knows his address. Again, no problem at all with that. Just make sure that just communicate your needs to Marilyn, and all will be taken care of. David says, asks Rick, on your charts, do you have an indicator or utility with which you plot the ABCD midpoints? Well, I use something. Let me mention before we leave this that the jumping off point for my system is something called Lindsay's Trident, and if you want to get a remainder basket version of Lindsay's book, it's called Trident, a Trading Strategy by Charles Lindsay, and it will give you at least a preliminary knowledge of some of the things that I teach. I don't use Lindsay straightforwardly because this X that represents his entry point is absolute disaster. You're just looking for trouble if you do what he says. But you'll see how we make exceptions and how we essentially take Lindsay's primary weakness and convert it into a strength. All right, so let's see. All right, the utility that I use in TradeStation, there is something in the drawing tool set called the extension line. In the Fibonacci tools, under price extension line, you can create a tool that gives you these ABC patterns. And in order to format it, you put up their regular extension line drawing tool, and then you click on it, and you get the format, and you can format it in the following way. You've got 0, 25% is where you would make entry, 50% is the midpoint hidden pivot, and 100% is the D target. So that's how I set up their extension line drawing tool with different colors and line sizes and thicknesses and so on and so forth. So once you've formatted the extension tool in that way, you just click on A, you click on B, and click on C, and it gives you the green line X where you would get short here, P where you would take profits on half the short, and D your eventual target. All trading platforms have something similar to this, but the one that I know and use is the one in TradeStation. You can also get through Marilyn an Excel spreadsheet-based ABCD tool that will allow you to plot by hand the ABC coordinates that are essentially your bread and butter. All right, so James asks, how do you set up TradeStation using ABC? All right, so I hope I just answered that question. And let me show you on another chart. We'll look at the E-mini S&Ps. And you'll know, I guess, if you've been in the chat room, that I drum roll. We got short here yesterday, not at the first top. I've been looking for a major top at 1984 and a quarter. And we missed getting short there because that's only 1983 and a half. And when it rallied again, we got short here. So we took the short overnight. It didn't get down quite to the point where we'd be using a trailing stop, which you'll learn about in the course, when to put those trailing stops in. But just following my discipline, I did bail out of the trade here at 1985 and a quarter, right here this morning. All right, so we're out of the trade, and we won't look back. But if I were trying to project the next little move in this son of a bitch, I would use the pattern right here. My A is that low down there, and my B is this little flat top high there, and C, good sharp C down there. And because of the way this thing is blown through the P, the red line, the P midpoint pivot, I have a pretty good idea of high confidence that it's going to get at least to the D target, 1988.50. So that's how I use the ABCD drawing tool to get my coordinates. But P is really where you get most of your information, and we're always looking for how the stock or future or whatever you're looking at interacts when it first encounters the P midpoint of an ABCD pattern. And again, P is simply the calculated midpoint of that CD leg. So you've got A, B, and that is an approximately 1977 to 1986. That's a 9-point rally. So we're looking for another 9-point rally here, and 4.5 points along the way, midway along that CD leg, is the P midpoint. And it's always P that we want to look at for clues as to how strong the underlying trend is. And I think this is blown through P with enough force that we should pretty much expect it to get to the 1988.50 target, which, if I'm not mistaken, is we're in record high territory here, as we so frequently are in this now 65-month bull market. So let's see, David says P on Euro US dollar at the moment seems like a good, never seen so much noodling around, as I put it. I do use my own jargon, but it's not necessarily trade-related jargon, but noodling around is one of those terms. Let's take a look at Euro US dollar, because I did have some. It's funny how when you put these. All right, so here is the target that I currently see as interesting in the Euro US dollar pairs trade. And let's see, in this case, there are a few possible highs, this one here, and this one here, where you could use an A. I tend to use the last one before this thing really goes over the falls. So, and let's see, let me sharpen that just a little bit there, maybe there. All right, so this is the A that I'm using, and you can see that it's nicely confirmed because this thing didn't quite make it to the 1.34197 target, but I teach that the best way to get into the short here belatedly is on a rally right up back up to P, because that's the most logical place for a dead cat bounce to fail, is on a rally. This P used to be a support. It's a hidden pivot midpoint support. There are really two hidden pivots, P's, this midpoint, and D's, targets like this one down here. So here you can see that this vehicle is paying very precise attention to P, which means we've got the right coordinates up here. We've got the correct A. There's really no question as to B and C, but there are a few choices here that we might have used for A. And I like this one because it's sort of the last little stick-up A before this thing dropped off the edge of the earth. And it's been confirmed by the rally exactly up to the P midpoint. So, all right. If there are no further questions, and again, this is your time to ask about the course itself, the course materials, and all of that stuff. So don't hesitate to get your questions out on the table. If there are no further questions, I am going to end this session. We've got a good-sized class this time, and probably still a few sign-ups to come, so this recording will be available to all. I'm going to stop it now.